Welcome to the Configure Price Quote Podcast. My name is Frank Sohn and I'm the founder of CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. My guest today is Garonzik, founder of Vendori, an Atlanta-based CPQ vendor that started in 2023. Ethan has over 15 years of business experience with companies like Citrix, SAP, and Merrill Lynch, besides others. I'm excited to have him join me today on the CPQ Podcast to discuss his background and the company he's built. Welcome to the CPQ Podcast, Ethan.
Well, thank you, Frank. It is great to be here. I always welcome the opportunity to chat CPQ with anybody in the know, and you're certainly the best of the best. So look forward to the discussion.
Hey, very nice thanks for the flowers, right? So I'm very excited to talk to you, Ethan. So, and let's maybe start by telling me a little bit more about yourself and what you did before you started Vendori 2 years ago.
Yeah, of course. So I started my career, Frank, up on Wall Street in New York, actually. I was an M&A banker for a few years. I was at Merrill Lynch, and this was after college. So I was there for a few years before the Great Recession of 2007, 2009. I actually went down to a small mid-market private equity shop for a few years before I'd started doing a lot of work in-house with various companies. Ended up at SAP doing sort of internal finance there, and I really loved the day-to-day challenges. So as soon as I hit the ground within enterprise software, I loved the problems we were solving, this combination of operations and finance and taking my background and my analytical skill set and applying it to a real growing business. So I held a number of roles within SAP, finance, operations, and was actually brought over to Citrix to help with a transformation from the legacy on-prem business to SaaS, where I ran and built the global deal desk team and the global pricing team. So all of this ties into the broader CPQ story, but I've largely played with numbers most of my career, and the past 15 years or so have been spent in enterprise software companies.
Excellent. And what sparked the exact idea for Vendori? When did you say, hey, this is what I want to do now?
I think that is the question. So we were, again, undergoing this transition of Citrix from a legacy on-premise business into a SaaS business model. All of the business systems had been set up to support the on-prem motion of selling a one-time perpetual license and then software maintenance. And you couldn't simply flip a switch to all of a sudden handle the proration and the subscription, the nature of subscription products. So I was involved in the procurement process for a new CPQ solution. And a combination of the fact that it took us weeks to get a deal out the door. We were on one of the two leading CPQ vendors at the time. And this, again, we can talk about this later in the conversation, is more about the implementation and the static nature of single tenant solutions. But over 20 or 30 years, those systems become outdated. And it became very cumbersome for our sales reps to create quotes, for our deal desk and RevOps team to approve them within the system, and then ultimately for our order management team to fulfill. At the time was several 100,000 quotes per quarter. So we were doing this at a really high volume. And we knew what we wanted out of a system, but we went to the market to see what was available. We were faced with multi-million-dollar year-plus consulting engagements just to tell us which solution to use and not even to get into the technical implementation. I'd built a few tools at Citrix that had been very effective in driving some quoting velocity that sat next to the CPQ for deal evaluation. And I just thought there had to be a better way to create a tool that didn't take months or years of implementation time, where the control of the business could be left to the business owners, and we could provide just a new experience that was different from the incumbent CPQ software, which at this point is probably nearing about 20, 25 years old.
Got it. And now I have a very tricky question for you. If you met someone at the party and asked, so what do you do? How would you answer without mentioning software or CPQ?
Well, I'd love to hear yours, Frank. I probably should defer to you on this, by the way, because we like dealing with problems at the root cause. So my solution to this is just to not attend parties. And I greatly prefer that over answering questions about what I do. I tend to lead, depending on who we're talking with a very high level. We help salespeople at large companies sell things. And then to take it from there and really explain that we are, in many ways, the piping behind the transactions. And so we facilitate deals getting done and all of that information that flows through a company that's needed for the various functions.
Hey, that's pretty good. Maybe I can use that. So, but anyway, so let me ask the next question: is what part of the startup phase do you like the most? And you're still in the middle of it, right? So, what do you like the most? What do you like the least?
I'd say the most challenging bit, and this is coming from somebody who worked with numbers in sort of very structured environments. There was always a clear outcome, a clear deliverable. It could always be addressed internally. It's operating in the uncertainty that every startup deals with. There is no playbook. We were well aware of all of the mistakes that common startups make. I think we've made every single one of them ourselves, even though we said that we wouldn't. So it's really, I think, the most challenging part of it, which has become the most rewarding, is learning to operate in a sort of vacuum of clear decisions, that having to stand by your principles, to have faith in your vision and the problem that you're trying to solve, and really to execute relentlessly on that, even though you're not getting the type of constant feedback loop that you might, again, working in a more mature company where you're tweaking things. Here, you're really building them. And a big element of it is you put it out in the market. And then it's really how you respond to that is going to dictate our success. So it's, again, coming from a very certain constrained environment with clear tasks and moving into an idea and really no roadmap ahead. It's been the most challenging, but again, rewarding part, because as you figure it out, as you start to develop, I have no background in sales or go to market. And as a founder, you're inherently a de facto sales rep. You have to be out pitching your product. I've never been a bag carrier at a company before, so I wasn't familiar with some of the tactics and the plays and the processes and the systems. It was my least favorite part about starting a business, was selling. And now it's one of my most favorite parts because you develop that cadence, that repertoire. So, and startups are all about learning. It's about figuring out what works, quickly dropping whatever's not, and then building a repeatable, scalable process. Again, whether that's ops, finance, engineering, certainly sales, or anything else.
Excellent. Sounds like you're getting into the flow of this. So, especially with the sales and also marketing part, I guess, right? But how would you describe the demand for CPQ solutions right now, anyway?
Phenomenally high. So I think there are a number of factors going on in the market right now that make it a very attractive time to be in CPQ. So start with the fact that the two incumbents, who you probably know that the percentage of the market controlled by Salesforce and Conga in particular, an overwhelming majority of legacy software that has been around often for, again, 20, 25 years. There's an entire new suite of companies that are emerging today, whether those are AI based or even in a previous version, could be crypto, they could be this PLG sort of product led growth motion. But we're seeing new products, new packaging, and new pricing models that are really opening up the demand for new solutions that are more flexible. These are younger companies, so these aren't companies that have six figures in 18 months to custom code a CPQ solution. And they tend to be changing their business model every few months. So they need a way to stay on top of those changes as they progress and migrate. So I think on the high end of the market, you have obviously the sunsetting or the end of sale of Salesforce CPQ, and the migration into RLM is certainly generating a lot of demand from some of that existing customer base that doesn't feel maybe like the core problems were addressed in the new RLM platform. And then in the SMB and really kind of the mid to enterprise side, again, this whole suite of new companies that need new tools and are looking for less traditional, complex enterprise solutions and more ready to deploy, no code, quick time to value solutions. And that's really where we focus.
Got it. And also for everyone, just to clarify with the names, right? The Salesforce RLM, Revenue Lifecycle Management, has been renamed as Revenue Cloud Advanced. So it's RCA. Anyway, so just to make sure we're not getting emails afterwards about the different names, right? So anyway, before we talk more about Vendori, what do you do, Ethan, when you don't work?
Personally, when I don't
Yep.
work. Well, we talk at Vendori about the importance of family, faith, and community. So for me, I have a wonderful, understanding, and patient wife who's stood by me while we launched this venture and has actually a very successful business of her own. And we welcomed a beautiful young daughter into the world a little over a year ago. Aside from that, we live on a small farm in rural Georgia. So between the family, the farming, the two startups, and everything else, that pretty much occupies every moment of the day.
Man, that's pretty tough. So I mean, that's especially with the baby. So you get enough sleep to run your business on a day-to-day basis, and your wife as well. So that must be very challenging. What's the arrangement there? So you really split the work 50-50, or?
I'd say the arrangement is generally more of a triage approach on a day-to-day basis. It's whoever doesn't have the sales call, the meeting, the conference. And then, of course, we're blessed to have as much support as we do from our family and friends down here. But it is day-to-day. There is no consistent plan. I could not share a clean breakout for you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, good. Then let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit more about Vendori, right? And tell me a little bit more about the products and services that you offer at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really set out to create a truly no-code version of CPQ that could handle the complexity that we saw coming from large enterprise environments, but was almost more of a startup approach when it came to implementations, onboarding, and enablement. And so when we talk about those tend to be the third rail of CPQ, I like to call them. A product, even the existing incumbents today, they're remarkable products, and configured properly, they can do just about anything you want them to. The issue, though, is we probably have half of our demo calls where a potential customer is, we say 3 years into an 18-month implementation of one of the big guys. And so our whole goal is, how do we enable somebody to be integrated and implemented with their existing stack quickly without disrupting their existing processes? And then once they're up, how do we ensure that they benefit from the multi-tenant architecture and our continuous and consistent pushing of new features? And then also, how do we make it so the ongoing management of that platform is something that does not leave you hooked on a very expensive stream of consultants, where your experience with that product is largely dependent on the implementation consultant, probably even more so than the software based on what we've seen. So how do we give that control? We talk a lot about control and velocity, helping deals get out the door more quickly, better deals, and then how do we offer that control of your entire quote to cash process, whether those are pricing rules or order management automations, or really anything along the way when it comes to the quote to cash cycle.
Excellent. And let me ask one thing, because everyone says these days they are low code or no code engine. Tell me exactly what that means, because I see this as a questions from customers all the time.
Absolutely. So you're correct that almost everybody says they are no or low code, and we've found that those tend to be no or low code with a big asterisk on it if you want to do one of these two or three things, but everything else requires coding. So this, for us, really came from our experience living through multiple digital transformations, whether that was at Citrix, at SAP, or in our previous lives. And what we found is that even though, again, the incumbent software can be configured at a point in time to do pretty much whatever you want it to do, even if the experience might not be great, no business is static. I can't remember a time in my professional career in-house where we haven't changed products, pricing, packaging, commercial motions, could be discount limits, could be gross margin targets, costs. Those things are constantly changing. And so for us, when we talk about no code, it's really two things. The first is on the implementation side. And so we leverage where we can some very extensive managed package, managed apps, whatever they're called for the various platform, that have a lot of business logic as well as the technical integrations built in. And so that allows us to get up and running quickly. But the true no-code element is built into the app. And what we do is we allow our customers to create everything from products, different pricing models, different packaging. So if you want to change from flat pricing to tiered pricing, or create bundles, create any number of configurations, is all done without code and syncs seamlessly to the underlying CRM or ERP. And then also things like pricing rules. So we can do a lot of complexity around if certain products are sold in combinations or a certain term, shade it this color. The workflows are all no code as well. So if it's over a certain dollar value or gross margin, send it to Frank. If not, send it to Ethan. And then we do a lot around some elements that really aren't typically touched in CPQ. So we can create custom waterfalls, the step from list price down to net price. We can add as many discounts in there as we want, both discretionary and program, all no code. They sync to the CRM. and the design of those program discounts is all done no code as well. So very much drag and drop. If you can say it in English, as I explained it to the team, if you can say it in English, that's how you would build it in Vendori, if you would. It's very much a sort of native text experience as opposed to a platform-specific coding experience.
Hello, everyone. If you have any questions concerning CPQ, consider contacting us at info@novocpq.com because we help customers with all kinds of questions related to CPQ. So we're involved in customer projects and we provide industry analyst services. So let me give you 2 examples on what helps a lot of customers regularly and see if that would be a help to you. The number one is we help customers find the right CPQ solution for them. We do that for customers of all sizes and all industries. I've been working in the industry since '96, and we help you to find the right solution. We do that with one-on-one meetings and projects, but we also do that through written reports. So we have the CPQ analyst report is our latest report. We currently have 6 and we'll soon have 7 available. And then throughout the year, we're striving to have around 20, hopefully more by the end of the year, and there will be even more reports. And we also help customers to stay up to date with what's happening in the CPQ world. If you already have a solution and you want to see what's new, we have a subscription that offers a number of hours and a monthly newsletter that shows what's happening in the CPQ space. It's our CPQ Circle subscription. If you have any questions about this, send us an email at info@novocpq.com. Then let's look a little bit into the some core functionality, right? So your core CPQ, you have a configurator. How much complexity can the configurator handle from your point of view, and as well also the pricing engine?
Yeah. So we've learned a lot going to market, and everybody says that their business is very simple. And perhaps in an isolated environment, it would be fairly simple to design a specific tool. But what you find very quickly is that even a slight variation in flavor can have huge consequences for the effectiveness of a configurator. So an example might be, and I had a call just about an hour ago with somebody who needed a configuration type where you would select a base model, almost like configuring a laptop on a screen, and then there would be various options to configure that way. I had a call right after that where the structure they needed was a base model, but instead of the typical dropdowns, they wanted everything done with add-ons and individually skewed products. So all to say, we can handle, I certainly won't say every type of configuration because there are things we haven't thought of, but all of your standard bundling, any type of packaging, and then even within bundles, things like, are components visible? Are they managed at the component or the parent level? So these are all things that we do very well. What we tend not to do today are sort of multi-dimensional configuration. So that might be an architect who's looking at things by square feet. We don't play in the CAD space or some of the manufacturing space. So that's a little bit out of our wheelhouse, but anything that involves a skewed product database and any permutation of packaging that comes with that is out of the box for Vendori.
Excellent. And you also offer subscription management, correct?
Correct. So this is part of the experience that we offer both through the managed packages or apps and also through publicly available APIs where needed. So Vendori can serve as the source of truth for your subscription management, very robust functionality in addition to the table stakes of extensions and expansions and upgrades and downgrades. We can do a lot around co-terming, around the complex management of subscriptions in the CRM. So things like merging subscriptions across different contracts in Salesforce, for example. But so yes, we do robust subscription management as well as the configure and pricing of the quote as well.
Excellent. Then from your point of view, what industries are you focusing on?
So we're very focused on broadly, I would say B2B technology. Within that, we have customers that really run the gamut. So we have some that are purely hardware based. So they are very much technology providers, but they sell one-time goods. They do not manage any subscriptions. They tend to be at large volume, but we see on the one hand, you have the B2B traditional hardware players. The far other side of the spectrum, we're dealing with we have some customers who are really the cutting edge AI sort of leaders out in Silicon Valley. And so there we're talking about agent-based pricing, consumption-based pricing and quoting, integrations with monitoring and invoicing systems downstream. So we really run the gamut. Again, we don't do manufacturing, sort of the big bombs with the 1,000 line items down to the screws, and we don't do the sort of the CAD-based quoting that you might see in some sort of design or manufacture firms. But broadly, again, anything in that B2B text-based subscriptions, consumptions, one-time, whether it's hardware, implementation, anything like that, all falls right in our wheelhouse.
Got it. And what customer size do you typically work with at this time?
Yeah, so it really runs the gamut, Frank. The small end is about 5 CPQ users. At the large, it's several hundred. For us, the size of the company is less important. It's more about the need for the CPQ solution. We tend not to play in the very small end where someone might have a single per user per year product. So a lot of the true startups, we tend to tell them, hook up to Stripe. You really don't need the complexity, the operational complexity, and the quoting complexity that we offer. You're not going to use rules or workflows or automations. But for us at the large end, it's where you want that seamless no-code experience where your ops, your finance, your business teams can still control the environment, but you need that complexity to manage complex packaging, pricing, or internal data architecture.
Got it. And you work mostly with North American customers at this point in time, or you have them globally?
Correct. So all of our customers today are US based. Some do have global operations. We support multi-currency and cross-border transactions, but currently our customer base is headquartered here in the US.
Got it. Perfect. And did you raise any investments so far?
So we have not. We have bootstrapped. We've been very deliberate about keeping the team focused on what we're building, and everybody came from a CPQ background in some sense. And as I'm sure you know, CPQ has been a very hot space, both for VCs, for strategic exits as well. So we certainly get a lot of interest, but our goal here is to retain focus, retain control of the company. And there have been some things over the past year that we've been able to do because we had the flexibility of a bootstrap company that I hope will establish us on a more solid foundation to scale in the future.
Got it. Excellent. And tell us a little bit more about your solution architecture, right? So you have all these buzzwords flying around that customers may or may not have heard, like the headless, the APIs, the composable architecture, and so on. Tell us a little bit more about it and just keep it high level so that it's clear what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Well, as a non-technical founder, Frank, I'll have no problem keeping it high level, but happy to share here. We take sort of two approaches to integrations. The first is this concept of managed packages, where we build out extensive business logic and we effectively write the API sort of integration framework on top of that underlying CRM, ERP invoicing system. For those, and assuming that our customers sort of fit within that business logic, that they might not have their own, say, custom flows or custom objects in the CRM that they need to account for, our integrations can just take a few clicks. And so it automatically syncs with Vendori. It creates all of the fields in that downstream platform. So we've been able to onboard customers in several hours when they were looking at 6 to 9 month quotes from some of the competitors because we have that built out. Where our customers need either custom integration functionality, it might be a platform that we haven't integrated with or built an application for, or where they need more customization, we offer fully available public API structure. So we do have some customers, for example, who treat the ERP as their product master. Out of the box, Vendori serves as the product master, but we can integrate with ERP's invoicing solutions, bidirectionally sync, push, pull, really adapt to meet whatever that customer's environment is. And then one last difference with us is because of the way that we are built as a multi-tenant solution, we've leveraged some technologies like sort of socket-based rules engine. A rules engine is driven by socket-based architecture. And what that means is that we can run real-time calculations and real-time quote validations and approvals against the rules in a way that the legacy solutions would require saves and refreshes and the data could get wiped out. So it gives us really that current feel and that immediate feedback to the sales rep when they're creating the quote.
And a follow-up question to that, obviously, is the off-the-shelf integration. So what CRM and ERP solutions do you integrate with off-the-shelf?
So off the shelf today, we have built out integrations for the CRMs, so for Salesforce and for Hubspot. we're currently working on the NetSuite managed package and the Dynamics managed package as well. And then I forgot we have some with messaging platforms as well, with Teams and Slack, because we do a lot with notifications and the ability to approve or reject quotes as a workflow user within the messaging platform, as opposed to having to come into Vendori. So the core for now is the underlying CRM, and then moving into some of the invoicing systems, and then up to Oracle and SAP.
Very interesting. So tell me a little bit more about the typical project for Vendori, how that looks like, what kind of work is involved.
As far as implementations go.
Yes. Yep.
So again, we see at the small side, and I referenced the customer we had live in a couple hours. They had a quote from one of the incumbents to implement their software. It was the high end of 5 figures in 6 to 9 months. We had them integrated Vendori with their Salesforce sandbox in something like 4 or 6 minutes, and we had all 200 of their products built out in 3 to 4 hours. So now this was a customer that was using our managed package. So for somebody who fits into what we ship off of the shelf, we can have them technically live, integrated, and running within a day. Obviously, we've never seen a CPQ project go from implementation to live in a day. There's onboarding. We typically suggest our customers run in a sandbox in parallel for a few weeks to make sure that all the quotes are validating and syncing to how they do it today. But on the short end, we can get someone stood up in a day. A longer project for us might take, the longest we've had was about 2 months. That was a very relaxed pace, and that involved the public APIs and really building out a more custom integration for this customer who had a number of platforms that were new to us and needed to get some nuance around order management and fulfillment and things that we could facilitate, but that were not part of our out-of-the-box package.
Perfect. Makes sense. Now, another hot topic these days is obviously artificial intelligence. Has been for the last 2.5 years. There's almost no episode where I don't talk a little bit about it. But tell me in a couple of words, what are you trying to do with AI in your CPQ solution?
And just like everybody else, this has been a key topic at Vendori, is how do we integrate this technology, or more, I suppose, firstly, how do we think about this technology? What can it do for our space? There are a number of ways that we're thinking about approaching it, and they're a little bit different from what other players in the market are looking at. I think there's a broad conception that if you somehow hook up AI to a CPQ, you can optimize your pricing. That tends to be the most common one that I've heard. Let's just hook an AI agent up and we can improve pricing, standardize pricing, and improve margins. And I think that's missing a bit of at least when I think of AI being large language models and the way it's spoken about today, a bit of a fallacy. We tried this at a number of places that I'd worked, and it comes down to 2 issues, and they're both math related. One's data, the other's math related. And I'll take a few more words here, Frank. I don't mean to dive down this rabbit hole, but I think it's a key question for the industry now. So typically when you think about optimizing pricing, the classic example is you might sell to, I'll use banks, JP Morgan Chase. You might sell them your product for $100 per user, but then all of a sudden you're selling to Citigroup for $20 per user. And we would get this question all of the time. Why is our pricing so disparate? Why can't we standardize this? And we went through an exercise with some of these early AI pricing tools. What they're really doing is looking at your data, and they have to go 3 or 4 levels down. So they would try to categorize by saying it's a financial services firm in the Northeast with this many employees, therefore the pricing should be X. I think the first fallacy is that you have that data in an organized, structured way that a system would be able to reference 3 or 4 attributes of an account level within Salesforce to provide pricing. But the second is when you actually drill down, that deal to JP Morgan might have been to 5,000 users across their investment banking division. The deal to Citigroup might have been for 20 users in a call center in Ohio. And so it's very difficult to think that you could plug something in and standardize it. So I don't see the case for AI there. And then the other is when you think about how that math would work, you would probably write it in some way that we would expect that financial services firm to be priced at $100. We will let a sales rep discount to within 10% of that expected range. Well, sales reps being sales reps, they want to get the deal out the door, so they'll sell it for 90. And the next sales rep who comes in, that data set has now been taken down with the 90. And so I don't personally think LLMs have a huge implication in the price optimization. Where we see them really fitting in is both contract review, so things like contractual price locks or uplift guarantees, things that tend to get lost in the data capture, but become very important when you're working with subscription amendments. And I think there are also some opportunities for guided selling and user interaction. Because the people buying this, the people talking about this, Frank, they're people like you and me who love numbers and systems and have spent years or careers in this particular space. But the average user, 95% of our users and usage of the platform are salespeople. And they don't really care about a lot of this stuff. They want to make a quote. They want it to be as easy as possible, and they want to get it out the door as quickly as possible. And so that's the challenge of this, is having something robust and deep enough that it can be used by the geeks of the CPQ world, but seamless and pleasant enough that it is effective for the actual users who are salespeople. So I took a few more words than you'd allotted me, but we think about it a lot.
No, and I think that's fine. That's interesting for listeners, right? So because AI is and will remain a topic for the foreseeable future, I don't see that changing. But anyway, we're coming to the end of this episode. So hence my last question is, what's a good way for interested listeners to contact you in case they have any follow-up questions for you or your team?
Well, we'd love for all your listeners to go visit Vendori.com. Anybody who's looking for time, you can book through the website. You can email me directly at ethan@Vendori.com. We love talking to folks in the space. Most of our ideas have come from people who've been doing this for decades. And so welcome the opportunity to connect with your audience, Frank.
It was very exciting, Ethan. Thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today.
Well, thank you, Frank. It was great being on.
I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novocpq.com. So long, everyone.